I'm not going to start with any easy questions.
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
I was vulnerable in the sense of I was just who I was.
In my journey as an entrepreneur, I really found who I am as a human.
When was I proud of myself today?
The cold exposure, it conditions the inside of our body to literally adapt.
The mycelium, which you can think of as the root system.
Whatever happens in the gut happens in the brain, and whatever happens in the brain happens in the gut.
Finding the grace and the humor.
Absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches.
Work at a gratitude practice.
90+% of the decisions that we make today actually stem from fear.
Allow ourselves to have imperfection.
What the hell am I doing? Can I really do this? Is this really worth it?
A wake-up call to me that I could not try to be something I'm not.
For me, it's really inspiring people to step out. And you don't have to step all the way out.
We're getting real deep.
That's what I like. What's your purpose?
Nothing starts without a plan. Nothing ever goes to plan.
If we can bring a practice into our lives that helps us be more vulnerable.
Entrepreneurship, I truly believe, to anybody on this call, is grit.
When people are on the path, they shine.
We so often convert things into flaws as opposed to strengths.
Chaga is actually the most antioxidant rich food on the planet.
Ayahuasca is basically a brew of different plants that grow in the Amazon rainforest.
I'm so thrilled that this content is getting out there, that you guys are promoting bold and vulnerable message and aspirations for people, because I hope that we can all really live that every day.
Hey, this is Jessica.
And Svetlana, and you're listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast,
where we aim to inspire others to live authentically through sharing the bold and vulnerable stories of peak performers across a variety of industries. This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. I have been drinking Four Sigmatic products for 3 years, and I'm thrilled that the company has been expanding. My go-to products are the Lion's Mane Coffee, Reishi, Cordyceps, and Chaga Elixirs, and the 10 mushroom blend that I add to my post-workout plant protein smoothies. They also just launched a new protein powder of their own that I am pumped to try. Learn while you shop by heading to foursigmatic.com/bold and vulnerable, or typing your discount code at checkout, all caps, bold and vulnerable. Kelly Noonan Gores is the writer, director, and producer of Heal, a documentary feature about the mind-body connection and our body's innate ability to heal. A Los Angeles native, she grew up in front of the camera acting on and off in commercials, TV, and film from the age of 7. In 2012, she started Elevative Entertainment with the intention to create conscious media that informs, inspires, and empowers. She has passion for psychology, wellness, and spirituality, as well as an insatiable appetite for understanding consciousness. She spent the last 18 years studying the teachings of luminaries like Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, Ernest Holmes, Dyer, Michael Beckwith, and many, many more. Her passion for optimal wellness intensified after reading The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton and learning that we are not victims of our genes like we have been led to believe. It was around that time in 2008 that she felt a strong calling to do a film about the power and possibility of the mind-body connection. 8 years and many hours of research later, Heal was made. Her intention with the documentary is to empower people to take control of their health back and demonstrate that almost anything is possible if we believe it is so. Enjoy this recording with Kelly.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast, where we share stories of vulnerability, bold action, courage, confidence, and just being the real you. And that's exactly what our show is about. So today on the podcast, I obviously have my wonderful co-host, Jess, who leads the show with me. Love you. And I've also got a very, very special guest. And this is somebody that has inspired and touched so many lives across the world with a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. I'd like to welcome Kelly Gores. When I watched Heal, I mean, my mind was blown. And I'll tell you, I think I've watched it like 3 or 4 times now, honestly, because I'm always getting, new bits of information that I may have not received the first time around. So, for our audience or anybody that doesn't know who you are, Kelly, or hasn't seen Heal, just tell us a little bit about yourself to start it off.
Sure. Like you said, my name is Kelly Gores, and I am the writer, director, and producer of the Heal documentary. And Heal is a documentary about the body's incredible ability to heal. And, the most powerful healer is within us. And also it touches on the science behind the mind-body connection. So really dives into how our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions affect our physical health, and how we need to kind of address all of those things when we are on a healing journey, not just the physical, which is often what Western medicine does. So that is, it's the documentary is now becoming a book, and Heal is a movement. It's just a movement about awareness and inspiration, and to kind of inspire people to take their health back into their own hands. Not to say don't get the best medical advice you can get, and, see the doctors, get the diagnosis, but really, take responsibility for your health and learn all of the amazing things you can do to help support your body's ability to heal.
Definitely. Going on that note, then, I'm curious, like, for you, what was your inspiration to create the documentary?
Yeah, so a lot of people assume that I either went through a gnarly healing crisis, or I lost someone to kind of a devastating illness, and neither of those things are true, thank God. But it's weird. I wish there was an easy story to share, because I get asked this all the time, but I can't really describe it other than it was a calling in my heart that I had this vision of doing this documentary and putting all of these experts, scientists, researchers, spiritual leaders, thought leaders in the mind-body connection field into a film to inspire others how I had been inspired by their work. So, I had, little things throughout my life, little health things, or, aha moments with books that I read that kind of planted the seed to do this film. But really, it just was one of those things I had to do. I learned about epigenetics from Bruce Lipton, his book, The Biology of Belief. I read it, I think, in 2008 or 2007. And I think that was really when the seed was planted to do this film. Epigenetics is the science that tells us we're not victims of our genes. We're not victims of our heredity all of the time, but that our genes can turn on or off based on our lifestyle choices and our environment and our subconscious beliefs about the environment. So all of that to say, so many little things contributed to me wanting to make this documentary. But, the long of the short of it is I just wanted to put all of my teachers in a film to inspire others the way I had been inspired.
And that's beautiful because, my belief is you don't have to have an insane awaken, a crazy life or death situation to elevate your consciousness and want to put out good into the world. It doesn't have to happen that way for some people. That's their path. And for others, it's just this inner knowing of, oh, there's something else out there. There's this nudge, to look a little deeper, to look a little further. There's more answers out there. So I love that. I don't believe that you have to have some crazy like healing experience. And although I love to hear those stories, but everybody has a unique story, so I'm sure the little seeds that were planted along the way for you, your story is just as significant to you,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm curious. So, as you were putting together this documentary, the process, because I know it takes a while to create something and to produce it. What did you learn along the way about yourself, about healing in general? Anything specific that really stood out to you where you were like, oh, wow?
Yeah, I learned a lot. We really had to, we were kind of a skeleton crew, and it was a low budget film. And documentaries can take a lot of time. They can, unfold over 3, 4, 5 years or longer. So, but when I had this vision, I was just like, I have a limited time. I want to film it in 1 year. I want to follow real people on a healing journey. So I had very high expectations and parameters. I was like, so, I'm going to follow these people and they're going to heal in a year, which was, kind of bold expectation. But it ended up, you set your intention and things kind of unfold accordingly. And again, like the pull in my heart, the vision, the call, whatever you want to call it, was so strong, and it didn't feel like it was mine. Maybe it would feel like it was mine more if I had gone through kind of an awakening, like you said, or something, a crisis to wake me up. But since I didn't, I was just like, this is so interesting that this is such a calling. So I just was like, look, God, life, universe, whatever term you want to put it in, I'm willing to say yes, but you've got to do the work, because I don't know where this is coming from, kind of, you know what I'm saying? So essentially I was just like, this is coming through me, and I trust. It was a big process of learning trust and getting out of my own way and just going, okay, there's a reason that this vision is coming through me, and I trust that I'll be guided along the way to do it. So I guess, as far as the process, I had the list of teachers that I wanted to put in the documentary. And so I went to a conference where a lot of them were speaking, and I made contact with them or their assistants. I sent them all my pitch deck of the vision of the documentary. And, they just started saying yes, which was amazing. And I think I got maybe 2 no's out of my dream list. And where there were no's, there were, they actually recommended other people that that should be on my radar, and they became yeses, and they became some of the most powerful parts of the documentary. So it just kind of flowed, and it was a beautiful process. But I had to practice what I was preaching. So making a film is very stressful, and if you watch the film, you'll know that all of the experts agree that stress is kind of what takes us to the doctor these days. 95% of what takes us to the doctor is stress-related illness. So, throughout this process, I just kept coming back to, like, this is not supposed to be stressful. And there's so many challenges that come up with making a film that it was easy to fall into stress. But we were given the tools. We just put into practice everything we were learning: meditation, trusting in the universe, trusting that it was all unfolding for everybody's highest good. So it was a really cool process of practicing what we were preaching. And as far as what we learned in the documentary, a lot of it I already knew going into it, because again, I had been studying these scientists and thought leaders and spiritual teachers for a long time. But there's always new information and discovery. And I think one of the biggest ahas was, how powerful our subconscious mind is, and that, we kind of develop our beliefs about life and our behaviors from a young age. Between the ages of 0 and 7, we are like sponges, just soaking up the programming and downloading programs from all of our caretakers and the people around us. So a lot of us are operating from belief systems that aren't even ours. They're from other people. And as Bruce Lipton says in the documentary, 70% of those belief systems are negative and disempowering. So these become these set the tone for the rest of our lives. And we continue to attract relationships and circumstances that confirm and affirm these negative and, subconscious beliefs that a lot of us, have these belief systems that I am not enough, I am not worthy, I am not safe, things like that. And we'll continue to attract circumstances in our lives that prove that those beliefs right, and of course they're not right. We're all divine children of God, and we're going to keep getting bigger and bigger wake-up calls to our divinity and our value and our worth and our inherent value as human beings, until we wake up and change those beliefs. So again, I can talk about it forever, but that was a big aha, like we got to take our minds back, take control of our minds back.
Yeah. I'm so on point with you in the, that aha moment about being the subconscious beliefs, because that's sort of where it got me as well when I started, my healing journey. The biggest aha was, oh, there's a program running the show. And it really started when I started to notice and become aware of my behaviors and my actions. And I started to ask myself, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this way every morning, when it's almost like an alarm clock? It's just, woke up this morning and it's time to feel this way. And I started to question that. And that's when I dove into the unconscious mind as well, and hypnotherapy and like everything brain-based, like energy-based healing. And I was still on that journey of consistently learning and revamping my toolbox in my mind of like, what else is out there? What other beliefs are coming up? Especially, I'm sure you notice this, being pregnant really it does something where anything that's been sitting in the body, in the subtle body, just starts to like come up to the surface, and it's like, deal with it. I need space.
Totally.
I'm expanding. I need space. Deal with it.
Absolutely. I feel like, life has a way, and biology, it's so fascinating, and it's so intentional. But when you're about to become a parent, it's almost like your body and spirit puts you through a crash course in consciousness. It's like tries to bring everything to the surface to heal as much as you can before you give birth and are responsible for this other little human being that you're going to be programming. You know what I mean? So it puts you through kind of the crash, or the super high powered pressure wash of get rid of as much crap as you can, so that you can program your children in a more conscious way than you were programmed.
Exactly.
Yeah, Kelly, I am just floored by your everything that you've done. I mean, just to hear that you created the documentary in a year, or maybe a little over a year, but in that time period, being the writer, director, and producer, I mean, I just want to recognize real quick, like before we get deep into this, like you're a badass, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows you're a badass. A female documentary writer, director, and producer. Talk about bold, a word that you used earlier. It's just amazing that you got this completed, and in the time frame that you did. I mean, essentially, people say what's written is real, and what I believe is when you write something down, it could become real, but you have to take action to it. And you just kind of floored me by saying, hey, I sought these people out. I went to a networking event. I sought out my heroes, and I wasn't afraid to ask the question. I wasn't afraid of those no's to get to yeses. So I just wanted to commend you for that, because that's such a huge part of the feat that everyone has this fear of, kind of that taking that first step. So firstly, that's just amazing. And secondly, on this kind of mind-body connection part of heal, and how deep you got into the epigenetics and the innate ability that we're designed to heal. We're designed to, take control of our emotions that can affect our physiology and our biochemistry. And I want to touch on one thing that you mentioned earlier too, because you guys are talking about expanding and making space and shifting mindsets, right? And you guys talk about the victimhood and kind of creating those shifts. So how does somebody go about that process of creating those shifts in their stories, creating those different behaviors? Because as you mentioned, that information is downloaded. It's downloaded by our caregivers, the people that are around us, the energy we're around, our perceptions of life and our beliefs, and it becomes our programming and it's subconscious. So how do we shift something that we're unaware of? How do you create that awareness? How do you go about that process of essentially healing, right? Or changing your mindset, changing your story?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for topic number one, which was, recognizing that I took action. And, I just want to say one thing to that, which is, going after my heroes and putting myself out there. I was scared the whole time, especially at the beginning. And I think just to encourage other people out there that have a vision or a calling or a passion, it's okay if you're scared. Just keep moving forward. Just know that like whatever calling you have in your heart, I love this, like within every acorn is an oak tree, within every calling or vision that's in your heart is the ability to see it through. That's why it's in your heart. That's what life is about. That's called, alignment with your soul. So you have to trust or develop a belief about life that, that is your kind of lamppost lighting the way. Follow the feeling, do your best, and it'll either lead you down another road that you're supposed to go down, or it'll come to fruition. So even if you're scared, do it, at least take action. Don't be frozen in fear. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you talk about victimhood and, the first kind of steps to healing. And I want to say that, awareness is everything. My hope with the documentary is just to kind of flip on the light switch of awareness so that you can start to self-reflect. It's so easy to fall into a downward spiral of victimhood. It's human nature. Things happen to us that we don't want to happen. and we, it's all we talk about resistance versus acceptance. And so, often when we're in victimhood, we're resisting life, and ultimately, the kind of biggest, what I learned most, like my biggest ultimate when it comes to healing is we've got to get to a place where we develop a belief about life, that life is always for us and never against us. And that everything that happens to us in life, even though it may be painful, even though it may not look like how we think life should look, especially if we're doing all the right things, we have to get to a place where we trust that God, that life, that the universe is unfolding for our soul's evolution, and that we are going to be faced with circumstances that are always for our highest and best good and for our soul's evolution. If we can get to that belief, then, we might feel like a victim. We might feel sorry for ourselves for a moment, but then we can, stop resisting what is, and we can accept and allow it to unfold. And that's the crucial first part of healing, is to get out of victimhood and, accept what's going on, be with what's happening, and stop resisting. Cause stress comes from when we resist life, when we resist what's going on, we resist what's happening. We don't think it should be this way. And when we're in resistance, we're in stress, and we are spending a lot of energy that our body needs in order to heal. So I guess all that to say is that just to become aware that victimhood does not serve us. Again, as far as emotions go, it's okay to feel sorry for ourselves for a moment. It's okay to feel sad, angry, depressed, but feel those feelings and then get back to, okay, this is all for me to wake up and to evolve. What is the lesson here? What is the blessing in this lesson? and then start to, accept what's happening, and then again, move forward, make better choices.
Yeah, I think it's Tony Robbins says it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And if you're afraid to have those crucial conversations with yourself, and if you're afraid to kind of work through the trauma, work through that intense trauma, then it's just going to sit there and it's going to sit inside your body, like you mentioned, the stress. And I think in your documentary, I'm not sure if it was Deepak who mentioned it, but they said believe the diagnosis, but not the prognosis. So I kind of want to get into like that piece of it, and kind of these belief systems of how you can hear something and then not take that as the absolute truth, and maybe how you can start to be aware of that stress and how it can maybe affect your physical health, but also having the capacity to control your thoughts and behaviors. So I want to kind of go down that path, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the most important takeaways from the documentary is, we're not anti-Western medicine. We just think that Western medicine doesn't address, the system is not set up to where your doctor can sit down with you and dive deep into all the aspects of your life, a holistic approach, treating you as a whole person. Oftentimes they just have the time and the capacity and the education to treat the physical with a pill or a surgery, to give you immediate relief. And that works great in acute circumstances, when there's an emergency and they need to, get you some fast relief to save your life. But for chronic illness, they say you really need to treat the emotional, mental, spiritual, as well as the physical. So that's that. But the real thing that you're touching upon here is belief, and how powerful our belief is. And we learn this in the placebo effect. And, the documentary gets into the placebo effect, but what a lot of people don't realize is the opposite of a placebo effect, which is positive belief and all of the incredible things that come, that occur in your body with a positive belief. There's also the flip side of that is a negative belief, which is the nocebo effect. And so, just like you say, the written word, is very powerful. The spoken word is very powerful as well. So when a doctor tells you what is most likely to happen with your type and stage of condition or illness, which is the diagnosis is, the type and stage of your condition. The prognosis is when the doctor tells you, what's likely to happen with this type and stage of condition. But if you buy into what the doctor tells you is going to happen to you, it's most likely going to happen to you. And that's a big, big problem, because doctors don't know the power of their words. And so we need to be aware that our beliefs about what is possible can literally turn into life or death. A lot of the experts talk about different anecdotes of, a person was told that they had lung cancer because there was a spot on their x-ray in their lung. And they said, this is an aggressive type and size of tumor, and, you have 6 weeks to live. And sure enough, the guy buys into that prognosis and dies 6 weeks later. Oops, a month later, the doctor goes back and realizes that same spot is showing up on multiple people's slides, and it was just a scratch in the lens of the x-ray machine or whatever. So the guy was misdiagnosed. He didn't even have lung cancer in the first place. But since he bought into that belief, and there's umpteen million stories that go along with this. So all of this to say is, when the doctor tells you there's a percentage chance of living, or this is how long you have to live, you cannot buy into that prognosis. Don't ever give your power away and let a doctor tell you what's possible with your life. So if let's just say he says there's a 25% survival rate, so you're 75% chance dying in 6 months. Why would you, the 25% of people live. So why can't you be in that 25%? And the research that I love that backs this up is Kelly Turner's research with radical remission. She wrote a book called Radical Remission. She was fascinated by spontaneous healing of late stage cancer, terminal cancer patients who were sent home to die. And yet after they were sent home to die, because their doctors told them there was no more they could do for them, 1,500 of these people survived. They did something in their lives that turned their cancer around and they healed, without the doctor's help. So she studied what all of these 1,500 people did, and all of them did a version of 9 different things. And so she calls these the 9 key factors of healing. And her research is specific to cancer, but I believe that it applies to all chronic illness. And only 2 of those things were physical. The rest were mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so all of this to say, she's like, look, these people did not accept the prognosis of their doctors. They were sent home to die, and they had this certain defiance, like, okay, if there's a 1 to 2% chance that I'm going to survive, why can't I be that 1 to 2%? And a lot of them, or a lot of them took the opposite route, and they just said, look, I only have 6 months to live. I'm going to go do things that I love. I'm going to be with my family. I'm going to quit my stressful job. I'm going to only eat and drink things that make me feel good. Clean water and all of these things. And you can dive more into it by reading Radical Remission, but it's fascinating. But all of these people healed. So again, long story short, go get the best diagnosis you can get, find out what's going on with you. But then there's so much information out there. Educate yourself on your condition, learn as much about it as your doctor knows, and then make your own prognosis. Have that defiance, have that, I'm not going to let anybody tell me what's possible, and focus on possibility, because people have healed from every type and stage of cancer. People have healed from every type and stage of any condition. It's possible. So let's focus on possibility, not on negativity, if that makes sense.
I love that you touched on I this whole topic of why can't I be in that 25% of, the people that do beat this, right? Because I feel like even aside from just the mindset of it, right? Because, just being positive about it, but on a unconscious level, having those negative belief systems stemming within you, within your identity, really is, I think, what trumps a lot of people into falling into being like the victim of this prognosis and this diagnosis. And I believe that, part of that radical remission is that, that radical acceptance and radical responsibility as well of like, just, okay, I have this diagnosis, right? And there's people that are just like, I'm going to go do things that I love, right? And in consciousness, right? Oneness, it's all about love. And I feel like that's part of the reason why so many people heal and are able to heal. And maybe there's something within those people, that something within their belief system where they were taught, love and oneness in their unconscious somewhere, right? Like they've somewhere within their identity level, something within them is like, I'm worth more than this. I'm worthy and deserving of living, versus, oh, well, I guess I don't deserve, which is like so many people's mindset. They just are like, well, I don't deserve this. I guess I'm a burden. I'm this and that, so I mean, I've seen it. And
yeah. And it's so hard. It's so hard. A lot of people have asked, like, what do I do if, someone that I deeply love is facing someone, and they're just paralyzed by fear, and they're just in resistance, and they're not doing anything, and they're just trapped in victimhood. What can I do? And all you can do is hold space and love them and allow them to go through their own process. And sometimes we grow as much from that experience as they do, because we have to allow people to go on their journey, and it's maddening sometimes where you want to help and you have the answers to help, but people, are ready when they're ready,
Yeah.
and they might not ever be ready, and it's devastating. But the more that you just hold space and love, they will feel that love. And, I think that will allow them to open and not resist,
Totally. I feel like that's been my learning experience with this, is to just let go of that frustration, and just accept and love, and like what you said, hold space, and just really visualize the best possible outcome. So yeah, but I think that's like what you brought up just in general of like the radical remission. Like I believe all of that has something to do on an unconscious, has to do with an unconscious level, like our unconscious wiring, maybe, like, a faith, a trust that's so strong that it overpowers any diagnosis or prognosis.
Absolutely. And, one of the people in the film is a woman named Anita Morjani, and she was faced with stage 4 cancer. She lost her best friend to cancer. So she obviously had these preconceived beliefs about cancer as being a killer. And a lot of us have that belief. And she was in a coma. She was at the end, the doctors told her family to prepare to say goodbye. Her organs were shutting down. I mean, her lemon-sized tumors coming out from her neck down to her abdomen. Like, there was no way that anyone in their right mind would think that a human body could recover from her state. And she had a near-death experience in her coma. And she went to the other side. And, she realized that she'd been living her life from fear, which is what a lot of us do subconsciously because of these disempowering beliefs we hold. And she realized, she just felt this unconditional love of our source, of this oneness from which we come and where we go after this physical body. Many different terms for it. But again, it's love versus fear. And our essence is love, and God is love. And the energy that keeps the cosmos in organization is love. So when we separate from that, when we separate from our source, which is love, that's when things start to go haywire. And cancer is our healthy cells that kind of go rogue. They separate from the oneness of the organism. They do their own thing. And it's a metaphorical wake-up call to kind of come back to love and choose from love and love yourself. A lot of us are beating ourselves up all the time with our negative self-talk. We're not rich enough, we're not thin enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not popular enough, we're not successful enough, whatever it may be. The more we're speaking, we're critical of ourselves all the time in our head, that's going to take a toll on our cells. Our cells are going to start to listen, and some of them are going to go rogue and rebel, Yeah. So
I actually bought her book. Anita Morjani, is that
yeah, Anita Morjani. It's an amazing book. Dying to be me.
Yeah, I bought it. Her story was one of the most inspiring stories on the documentary for me. I mean, they were all super informative, inspiring. I love every speaker on there. But I was just like, wow, and I think that, I met a person a while back that told me that really shifted my mindset about cancer. And he said, and he's a doctor, cancer is not a bad thing. He's like, we're looking at it like it's a bad thing. That's the perception. If we shift your mindset, it's like, it's just your cells are basically, I can't remember his exact words, but he was just basically saying, it's like your body's asking you, like, hey, pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Like, your soul is like, pay attention to me. I need some love right now. I need you to give me some attention. You've been neglecting me for a long time. And so this is my only way of getting your attention. And in all my holistic training as well, it's like we learn, like, cancer is conflict internally. It's an inner conflict within that's not being addressed. And when you address that, you start to heal miraculously.
Yeah, and address it with love. A lot of Western medicine attacks it with kind of a war mentality and bombardment, but
we got to fight it, is what they say.
Exactly. And kind of that fighting mentality is what got you there in the first place, is what the gist of what the experts talk about in the film. And cancer is one example, but autoimmune illness,
yep.
All these inflammatory based illnesses and imbalances, all of these symptoms, whether it's skin rashes or psoriasis or eczema or joint pain with all these autoimmune illnesses, all of these things, all of these symptoms are alarm bells going off, alerting us, trying to wake us up, to that, we do need to treat ourselves with a little more love and reverence by making better choices, whether it's with diet, whether it's healing past trauma, whether it's forgiving others for this perceived wrongdoing. And life, the universe, God, is going to continue to give us wake-up calls, louder and louder and louder and more serious and serious and serious, until we wake up and start to love ourselves more and love others,
Yeah. Or it's like they say, we got to get rid of it. An interesting story you brought up, the autoimmune diseases, right? And I have a perfect example of that. My boyfriend was just diagnosed with thyroid, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, right? His results were like he was like, something's off, he's got like the brain fog, extreme tiredness. He's just not feeling good. So he decided to go to the doctor, and he's like, something's off with my brain. He was thinking maybe he needs a stimulant. He's like, maybe I need some sort of ADD medication. And the psychiatrist, which I like really commend her for, and I love that she did this, she actually had his thyroid tested, which I think is so important. It's like a holistic approach, let's not just look at the symptoms. Let's see what else, what's going on with your hormones, how much sunlight are you getting? Are you drinking water? Are you getting, just all of these different things that come into play. So she tested his thyroid, and she's like, wow, his levels were just really, really high. I believe, the normal range for your thyroid is like point something to 4. His was 20. And he had antibodies. So his body, it's definitely, they said it's autoimmune. And right away they're like, all right, we're writing you a prescription. And he said, no, he said, I'm going to go about this. I'm going to heal myself. And the doctor laughed in his face.
Not great.
And the doctor laughed. And so he decided to go on a diet. He did the autoimmune protocol diet with supplements, and the Whole30 autoimmune protocol. I don't know if you've heard of it. And he retested 3-4 months later. He's down to 10. It's slashed to 10, 20 to 10. And his antibodies are down. So he's healing. It's a process, but he's healing, and he's sticking with it. And he felt horrible in the beginning. He didn't feel good. He wasn't sure. It's like a roller coaster. But he's finally kind of like starting to see the light,
Good for him.
And that's sort of like, okay, so that sort of takes me in this direction of like, there was this one woman in the documentary, and I don't know if you can speak on her. We can always edit this, but the woman, Eva, I believe was her name, skin boils and rashes and things like that. And she was going through the healing process. And then I remember she had the breakout again, right?
Yeah.
Where she's at now, like what's happening, because as I'm watching this, I'm like, it's a healing crisis. Stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. So she, when we started the documentary, she had never addressed her condition from a holistic view. She had never kind of addressed this past family trauma, especially with her mom and her dad. She had never, she was always putting other people first and neglecting herself and nurturing and loving herself. And as you see, she was very open, and she's so vulnerable and sharing with us her past trauma. And so it's kind of the first time that she was exploring this, and healing and uncovering past emotional trauma can be as painful, if not more painful, than when the trauma first occurred. Wound healing is like a serious endeavor, which is why a lot of us don't do it. It's too painful to look at those the past hurts, so she is still on her journey. We've received it's got to be close to 1,000 messages from people all over the world with suggestions of what she might try. And I went through this similar thing, or it's this rare disease only 300 people in the world have. And so I've kind of tried to filter and send her the ones that I thought had some legs to it. And she's just been continuing to be on her journey. She quit her stressful job. She's spending a lot more time with her daughters and her partner. And, I think I check in with her from time to time, and she saw a medical medium, and I think they're exploring some different things that came up. She's working with a naturopath. I think she's still eating plant-based, maybe 90% of the time. So she's still on her journey. I don't think she's found the root cause or the solution yet, but she's made huge strides. And everyone's journey looks different. It's complicated, it's complex, multifaceted. And, some people can heal in a matter of moments, and other people it's going to take years, because it's just, there's so many layers to it. And you have to be courageous, and you have to take responsibility. You have to really, it's a commitment. And just like your boyfriend is doing, he could have easily taken the pill, the hormone pill for your thyroid, or, he could put in the hard work and reverse it over a matter of months, or a year, or let's say, and make the hard choices and commit to a better way of eating and managing your stress, or all of these things that he's probably doing. But that takes work. And a lot of people in today's society don't want to work. This is not Eva at all. I'm just saying in the general picture, we're hypnotized on these pharmaceutical commercials that the quick fix is the best thing for you. But we're also how are we sitting here thinking that a quick fix is okay when they're rattling off this list of devastating side effects? Have we lost our mind as a country that we think it's okay, let's take this drug for my plaque psoriasis, but may cause lymphoma or death? I'm are you serious, people? Let's learn about psoriasis and make some serious lifestyle changes, not just take a pill that may cause us to die or get cancer.
Yeah. I mean, I also have to say, you're totally right. It's a journey. And, for my boyfriend, he's been on a healing journey as well. And he's doing he's mind, body, soul. He's also working through his any limiting beliefs that are coming up for him as well. And he's getting holistic care and energy work and chiropractic care. He's definitely putting in the necessary, effort, and he's really looking at, he's giving himself grace as well, and just being kind to himself, and as well as being where am I, what's the bullshit, calling, and I'll call him out too. I'll be like thyroid, huh? Yeah, well, I wonder, is the throat chakra, what's going on with the throat chakra?
Yeah, where are you not speaking your truth?
Yeah, I'm are you standing up for yourself? So, and you're right, everybody has their journey, and it's such a process. It's definitely such a process, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it. So I'm really happy to hear that she's still, seeing doctors, seeing naturopaths, and just working through it.
Yeah. And she, I think all the love that she's received from all of the people in the documentary, I mean, she's by far the person, she's asked about the most. So many people reach out specifically to help her. The world is trying to reach out to help her. And I think she's feeling that love, and if we have a belief system that we're not worthy of love because our dad abandoned us, and our mom, didn't take care of us because she couldn't take care of herself, that love is hard to accept. And that, it's a process to allow that in, and again, I'm not saying that specifically applies to her, but it's stuff to look at. It's she's getting a lot of love right now. And I know that she's receiving it. And so that in itself is healing, you know?
I hear your baby.
I know. Are you chatting? Are you
she's
chatting?
so
She wants to
cute.
chat. She's so cute.
So, well, that's really funny since we hear her in the background. I wanted to transition into motherhood, and but before we do, Jess, do you have any questions still about Heal and the book and the documentary? Because I'm curious to see how Kelly's life has shifted.
Yes, absolutely. And just right before we get into it, thank you for sharing that story and the continued journey of Eva. And what an inspiration that she is becoming the architect of her own healing, and she's putting in the work. And I think it's really important to recognize that you also mentioned it's not just that mindset shift. That's a huge part of it. It might be 80%, who knows? But you mentioned the diet, that she's on a plant-based diet. She's left a stressful work situation. And there's all these balanced parts of our lifestyle that we don't get from just going to a Western medicine doctor. They're not going to say, hey, maybe it's your stressful job. They're just going to, diagnose and then offer you some sort of a immediate remedy where, again, like you mentioned, most of, our world doesn't want to put in the hard work. So they're going to take that blanket medicine to say, okay, I'll just cover it up. I'll cover it up. And then another thing, comes out of that. Oh, now I have this because I took this medication and it caused this or whatever it may be. So I'm just glad you mentioned that it might always not be just that mindset. You can make that mindset shift, but along with that comes the extra things that you mentioned, such as diet and work, and really changing your entire lifestyle. And what I thought about when you guys were chatting was just all the research I've done has been really on the Garrison therapy and really how the plant-based diets and kind of the raw, coming back to the earth and coming back to all of these natural things that can really help us heal. That's kind of what popped into my brain. And I just thank you for sharing that inspiration. And the human body is amazing. It can heal itself, and we just need a change in perception. We need a change in our belief. And these stories of people that are going through healing are so powerful. Because like you mentioned, you didn't have this crazy traumatic health scare or health shift, but so for you to just sit there and make a documentary, maybe without those stories in it, maybe wouldn't have been as powerful. So I'm just so glad that you added that aspect in. It's very important for people to see others going through that journey, because maybe that will be the thing that will wake them up.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's all I had to add on that. I mean, the only other thing is just, other thing I've heard in terms of mindset with illnesses, especially related to cancer, is there was a study that was done, and I'm not sure where, so I won't pretend to guess, but there was a study that the people that were being treated in hospitals with Western medication, even if they were going through some sort of a chemotherapy or radiation, the more that they laughed throughout their healing, the better that they got. And so even just laughter has such a powerful effect. And, the study was based upon people that were given cartoons to watch or funny shows to watch while they were in bed. And so these people weren't getting any physical activity. They were basically kind of watching TV all day, but it was really dependent on the material that they were taking into their mind. So I thought that was something else powerful, just to say, hey, this has been studied. Maybe it's not getting the platform it needs because the pharmaceutical industry might be hiding some of this stuff, but some of the research that is out there on just laughter and changing that mindset, and as we have all been mentioning, diet and stress and all of these other factors, it can shift your entire healing process, especially with things as severe as cancer. So thank you for sharing the stories. Yeah, I just appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, and just the final note on that, it's like, you are what you eat, but what you eat is not just the food you're putting in your body. You're consuming what's put into your mind. And laughter is truly a powerful medicine. There's so countless stories. The two stories that stuck out to me in the movie The Secret were the woman that healed herself in 3 months from stage 4 cancer through laughter. She just watched funny movies and funny content, and it releases healing chemistry in your body, and it takes you out of fight or flight. So laughter truly is this like powerful, even if you're just, doing it for 30 minutes a day, like, it's powerful. And the guy in The Secret as well that healed himself, Norman Cousins, with laughter, he realized that when he was laughing, when he was watching funny movies, it was an anesthetic. He didn't feel pain while he was laughing. So he just laughed more and more and more, and eventually healed himself from this debilitating terminal illness. And so again, it's the content that we're consuming in our minds as well that really can have a negative or a positive effect on our biology, on our physiology.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's get into motherhood, and I'll let Svetlana take it away because you're 32, I guess, weeks now, right? 32 weeks?
So crazy. 32 weeks, home stretch.
That's so exciting.
So exciting. So it's everything. I feel all emotions. I feel happy and sad at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. It's like one moment I'll be sad and then I'm like, I'm so grateful and I'm crying.
Yeah.
So it's like an emotional roller coaster in the best way possible. So, I guess for like our listeners, because we have moms on here that listen, and for myself as well, this is sort of a selfish question. It's a transition, right? So like you're going from just, you and your hubby, or, you, and now you've got like a baby and you have your career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have your book. What has that been like? Because that's the stuff that's sort of, going through my mind. It's like, I have my purpose. I'm so called. And then I have my baby coming. Did you go through this as well? And how are you navigating that?
Totally. One thing I've always known in my heart, and not everybody feels this, but I felt for sure 100 million% that I had to be a mother. I just knew that I wanted to experience that. I knew, that I wanted to feel that love and that purpose of raising another human being and experiencing that. So I've always wanted it, and I'm 40 now, so it didn't happen until I was 39 and 40, as far as getting just where life took me. But like you said, it's such a roller coaster of emotions, and I have such amazing friends and support along the way, because I was a little later than my other friends having children. So they encouraged me. They were like, look, the reason you feel sad, it's okay to mourn the life that you had. I mean, I had 39 years of total selfishness and freedom. My schedule was my own. My life was my own. I could do whatever I want, whenever I wanted, to an extent. So there is that transition of going, okay, from here on out, it's all about my child. It's about this human that is dependent on me for shaping their subconscious programming and physical health and safety and well-being. So, there's that element. There's also hormones where you just have zero control of your emotions. You can't explain it through psychology. And then there's just all the cliches about how your heart just explodes with love. But at the same time, like I had my child, my little Riley, naturally. I was very, obviously, all into natural health and stuff. So I wanted to try and attempt to give birth naturally, like women have done for thousands of years, and do it without drugs. I also have tremendous phobia of needles. So I wasn't super stoked on the idea of a 6-inch long needle going near my spine. So that helped me stay the natural course. But labor and delivery was gnarly. It was intense, and it was like not really the pain. It was just intense and exhausting. It's like legit called labor for a reason. And so by the time I pushed for an hour, I also had these high expectations, like I did with the documentary finishing in a year. I had expectations. I did Pilates throughout my pregnancy. I'm going to just push her out in 3 pushes, like all my other Pilates friends, Well, no, that did not happen at all. So I was pushing for an hour after 17 hours of labor, and I was absolutely exhausted. So by the time she came out, and they put her on me, like I wasn't crying tears of joy. I was just freaking exhausted. Like all I wanted to do was just like close my eyes and go to sleep. I was so relieved that it was over, but then it wasn't over. Like then you got to deliver the placenta, and then you got to learn how to breastfeed. It's like, I'm just like, when is the mother going to get a break here? It's like women, they go through, my respect for women throughout time and history, quadrupled, quintupled, whatever the biggest multiplier is, because it's really a fascinating and powerful thing that women go through when they have children. So anyways, like, so that whole wave of love and like tears of joy didn't come for me until later, after the intensity wore off and the PTSD from giving birth. And this is not to scare you, because again, it wasn't painful.
No, you're not.
It wasn't about the pain.
So many different stories.
Yeah. It's like, it's just intense. It's not even real pain. If I can describe it that way, it's just intense. It's like, you're birthing a child. It's, it's a lot. But you can totally get through it. I did it without drugs. She was fine. I was fine. It was beautiful, but it was just exhausting. So whatever you envision, it's going to be beautiful. And, even if you get an epidural, whatever the course may be, it's like, it's also just allowing, she's got a plan. The universe has a plan. Like just allow it to be whatever it's going to be, and know that she or he is going to come into this world perfectly. But yeah, now it's like, it's a struggle to juggle both. I'm blessed that I have a lot of support and help. But even still, only I can get up in the middle of the night and breastfeed or pump, a nanny can't do that. So you're still doing the heavy lifting, even if you can hand off your child for an hour to do work, but it's awesome. And I don't know that I'm the type of person that could just be like, I love working, but it is a challenge to balance it. I want to spend every second with my daughter, but right now, just it's a very intense time because we're launching the Heal book, and there's a lot of kind of things you've got to tee up for a book launch. You got to make sure that PR and social media and everything is staying on top of it so that people are aware. It's all about awareness. So yeah, it's a beautiful struggle, I guess. Yeah. And your heart, when I was going through labor and I had the baby, I was like, how do people do this multiple times? Was my thought,
Oh my God.
I'm like, what the hell just happened? And why would anyone do this again? And then of course that wears off, and you have this beautiful thing called, selective memory. And your heart is so blown wide open that you understand why people can do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I personally probably couldn't do it more than 2 or 3, but it's just a new level of love that probably close to that unconditional love that you feel, on the other side, or whatever, what Anita Moorjani was describing in her near-death experience. It's just a love that you can't put into words, and that makes it all worth it. Everything is a challenge, but it's a beautiful challenge.
Thank you for bringing up that there's this one part that you said that I really love, and I think is just so important for anybody listening that is going to be a mother or is a mother and went through this or is still going through this. And I can feel that. I can, also chime in on this and say, yeah, definitely. The part where you said, it's okay to like grieve this identity, because that's part of it. It's like you were solo for this amount of time, and now you're actually sharing your body for almost 10 months. You have a little inhabitant. I call her my little rent-free inhabitant.
Totally.
That's what I tell her. I say she's my little rent-free occupant. So you're sharing your body, which is such a insane change. And this is where I'm so my perception has completely shifted of like women in general. Like I'm just like, wow, we are so powerful. Like, girl, don't ever tell me that you're not worth it, because the stuff that your body is capable of doing, like producing a life, you're a portal to life creation.
Totally.
I'm just like, it's really very eye-opening and heart-opening and everything that you're describing. And there's also the grieving of it, of like just grieving this old identity and shifting into a new identity, which can be scary, right? Because the reptilian brain is like, oh, change. No, I like it this way. Like, no, I want to stay the way it has to be, the way that it was. But it's also such a beautiful experience and transition. And I too also have always known, like, I want to have, like, I always knew I was going to have kids. I never knew when. And it just, they say like, there's never a perfect time. So I think when it happened, it was like, oh my God, like my first thought was like the time. It's like, there's all these things, there's all these building blocks. It's like, how do I, like the juggle, right? Because I'm also one of those people where I love what I do. And I also know that I'm in love with this baby already as she's, nestled in my womb. I'm like, how do I love you so much? I haven't even met you.
It's so amazing. And you look around and I'm just in awe. I mean, like my husband's mother had 6 kids. He's the oldest of 6. And he grew up in Nazareth, and, they didn't have nannies. She birthed at home. Like they had to walk up and down this huge hill and go, like they had maybe like a piece of bread and some goat yogurt and this like olive oil for dinner. I mean, they just survived. Like there's never a right time, like you said, but you figure it out. You make it work, and life evolves, and it evolves beautifully. So, she's gonna enhance your work and may delay it, may not, but it's definitely like it's all perfect.
So what's your top advice, tips for new moms, women that want to be moms or are moms? What are some of your, the things that you wish you knew?
Like you mentioned earlier, I think I wish I knew more about the 4th trimester. Then I read all the pregnancy books and the birthing books. I wanted to know as much as I could about labor and delivery, so I could be prepared mentally for going through it naturally. And that's what I spent most of my time on. But I really wish I had known how to take care of the mom in that first 40 days after giving birth, because I didn't realize how, postpartum depression is because, the mom's body becomes so depleted, and breastfeeding is hard and labor and delivery is intense, and you really need to recover. And pregnancy, your body changes, you're expanding, like you said, your hips, your ligaments, your skin, your organs, everything gets moved around. And so for me, I'm super active, I'm super athletic, and like I was raised with a brother. Like I don't like to be sick. I don't like to feel weak. I don't like to be in bed and have people wait on me. I'm just not that person. However, knowing what I know now, I would have allowed people to take care of me, especially in the first 3-4 weeks, because, you know, there's this whole postpartum depletion. There's actually a book called Postpartum Depletion Cure that I wish I would have read before. I didn't know until like after that 4-week period, that, you know, you're supposed to be eating a lot of warming foods, soups, broth. You're not supposed to be drinking cold things. And there's, you know, all these ancient traditions. Really, you know, the village raises the baby for the first 40 days, you know, in all these different ancient traditions, Chinese medicine, they have these 40 days where the mother is taken care of by all the women in the village. They bring the baby to her. She stays in bed and she eats and does all these warming kind of therapies. And it really just helps the mother recover psychologically and physically. And that's so important, because if you get that foundation of healing, then you are going to recover a lot faster and be there as a better mother, you know? So that's, I would dive into that as much as you can. And then I think for me, I really swear by, you know, when I was pregnant, I went out and connected with nature every day. I did a lot of earthing, which really just calms the nervous system. Like you said, there's a lot of fear and anxiety and excitement and stress if you're working, that comes with pregnancy, especially as it gets later and your body's changing a lot more. It's so important to put your feet in the earth, whether it's the sand, the dirt, the grass, and connect with the earth, because when you ground and you earth, you're lowering your blood pressure, you're really calming the central nervous system, and the baby is just soaking up your nervous system. I mean, you're creating a nervous system. And so the more calming, grounded you could be throughout the pregnancy and after, but, you know, pregnancy, you're really setting the tone, figuratively and literally, for your daughter's or your baby's nervous system and health. So I can't, you know, I don't know why my child is so calm and chill. She's like literally the chillest baby, but I'd like to think part of it is how much I grounded and earthed during the pregnancy.
Those are really, really great tips, especially the part where you, when you talked about, well, all of it is great, obviously, like the taking care of your central nervous system, because it's, you know, she's linked to you. But, you know, when you said eat warming foods, I recently met a Ayurvedic doula, and she told me, you know, after you give birth, make sure to drink warm water, not cold water, and wrap your belly, because there's all this space left afterwards. And, you know, that's a lot of space for air, and it messes with your digestive system. So it's nice to like wrap yourself after with like some women wear, I believe, like a wrap around their belly for like 6 weeks after, and to really rest and allow your body to heal. Like just give yourself that time and that space to lay around and let your body heal. And I even had my holistic doctor tell me that in some ancient traditions, a woman, it's illegal to have a woman give birth right after she had a baby, like a year after. You can't do that in some ancient traditions. You have to wait 3 years, because she's building her body back up, her immune system, her blood. It makes sense with the warming foods. You lose blood, and you need to warm your body. And cold, you're already cold, right? Because you lost blood. So that makes, to me, in my mind, it makes sense.
Totally. And I wish I knew. I mean, I've always run hot, you know, Ayurvedically speaking. I'm like Pitta Vata or whatever it is. Yeah. So because I didn't know about the warming foods and everything, and I'm freezing all the time. And then I started reading about it. I'm like, oh, duh, I lost so much blood. You know, and my body's healing. So I mean, I wish I would have prepared a
That's
little
okay.
better.
I mean,
But
you're still in the postpartum stage
Yeah.
right now. You're still healing, and you're probably doing all the right things now, all the things that are good for you, that work for you. So, I mean, and now you know about it. Some women, they never knew about it, and maybe it takes them probably prolongs the process for them,
Yeah, and educate, read about the fourth trimester, also with your partner or your husband, if you're going through this with someone, because I'm like, I don't think men realize what women go through. I mean, yes, my husband was in the room and was like, holy shit, you're so strong. But, I think it's important to educate, because ancient societies, they, the women came together to support the woman who just gave birth. But oftentimes, we don't have a whole group, your mom or your girlfriends, and, maybe they're not able to be there all the time because of work in their life. So if your partner's there all the time, like really help to kind of clue him in on the fact that you need, especially in the first 6 weeks, a lot of support to heal. And the way that he or she can help you out is by, allowing you to be still, help make warming foods, massage, if they're not going to give you a massage, get you a massage, find someone that can come to the house, and really pamper someone. The mother needs to be taken care of in those first 6 weeks so that she can better take care of the baby.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt this beautiful conversation, but I did want to mention, you were talking about warming yourself to heal and the warming foods. And I have never been pregnant and I don't have any children, but I did want to throw out there that I've actually heard the opposite. And I know that there's kind of TMI when it comes to healing and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And there's so much information out there and everyone has their opinions, but I'll just share a quick story. I've integrated the Wim Hof method into my life, and I really heard about it through a couple different sources, but one of the sources that I heard the method through was a woman who was going through postpartum depression, and she was using the Wim Hof method, which is, intense cold plunging for her healing. So not only was she doing the breathing that's associated with that methodology, but she was then doing the ice cold baths, and it was really helping her mental stress, her nervous system. It was help healing her heart, and she felt alive and she felt more energetic afterwards and felt like her energy was really just uplifted. So I don't want to take away from the warming conversation that you guys just had, but I do want to throw out that there is a success story of somebody who did cold therapy. Maybe if that warming isn't working for you.
Do you know what, because I'm all about that as well. I'm just wondering if it was a little later, like
that's
after
what I was
she
wondering.
Physically healed, after like the organs go back and the blood is replenished. Like it would make a lot more sense to me if it was probably after that initial 6 weeks, but I could be wrong.
I'm not quite sure. Great question. I'm not quite sure if she did it within the first 6 weeks. I don't think that she did, only because I know that her journey with postpartum depression was quite long. And she was searching for some sort of healing. And I believe that she found the Wim Hof method after her second child. She had gone through postpartum with her first child, and she had a second child, and she was starting to feel those feelings again, and I believe that she was on a search to heal herself from panic attacks and high stress and just really deep depression. And so I don't believe that she did it within her first 6 weeks. So it's a great point to maybe, for anyone listening, again, I'm not a doctor and I've never had a child, but just to mention that it could be some sort of a therapy that you could use as a natural remedy maybe after that period.
And I totally agree. I'm like so into breath work, and I'm, as far as like, healing, athletes do it for injury and post, to speed muscle recovery and the cold plunges. I'm totally an advocate of, and I could see for sure how the psychological effects and postpartum hormonal roller coaster can be helped through that whole process. But I would be willing to bet that it's after the physical healing that from delivery and from pregnancy. I'd be willing to bet it was after 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and cold plunges are quick too, right? Like you cold plunge, it's really quick, and then you can, it's maybe 2 minutes or so that you're sitting in your plunge, and then you can go have a hot chocolate. So I don't think it's something where you're like immersing for hours and hours on end in an ice bath. But yeah, those warming foods, I have no doubt, and the Ayurveda, no doubt that it's healing and helpful. I just wanted to make sure I was throwing it out there as an option.
It's great too, and it's good to mention that because I mean, Wim Hof, I encourage everybody to look into because he's shows an amazing. He's been able to demonstrate how incredible the human body is just by using our breath, and everybody has breath. Otherwise, they wouldn't be alive. And it's a tool that's free. Once you can learn how to use it, you can really, really improve your health and your psychology, your mental health as well. So I'm glad you mentioned breath work because I'm a big, big advocate.
Yeah, and I kind of have another question too that might be a little bit controversial, and hopefully you don't mind. Let me know if you want me to cut it out. When you mentioned, I had 39 years on my own, and now I'm sharing this life with somebody else. It's been my kind of personal goal to have kids later on. I'm 32. I don't really see myself having kids in the next couple of years. I want to wait until my late 30s to have children, and I've been pretty vocal with that about my thoughts about that with a bunch of people, and I've gotten kind of shame for it and kind of ageism and stigma about, oh, well, that's not going to be healthy, or you shouldn't do that, or just people kind of putting me down for that. And so when I heard you say that, I was like, ooh, I kind of want to ask this question, because for all the the working folks out there that maybe want to hold off to have children a little bit later in life, what was that like for you? And did you feel like you felt pressure to have a kid? And I don't know, feel free to answer or to not answer. Just wanted to throw it up.
No, I'm super happy to discuss anything really, but this my situation was, I was probably ready to have kids around 35. I was like, I had never felt the clock ticking. I'd always known that I wanted kids, but I wasn't really ready mentally, I don't think, until I was about 35. And I didn't feel that like, oh, my loins are ready to birth a child until about that age. But my husband had already been married previously a couple times and he had 5 children already. So he was like, I spent about 6 years convincing him to do it one more time, so that was why my delay came. But around 36, a lot of people started projecting their fears onto me, like, you should freeze your eggs, just be smart. Like, what if he doesn't want to have kids? Then you've got to find someone else. You never know how long that'll take. And I'm not against freezing eggs at all. I think that actually, if you have the means and desire, it is I think it's beneficial that, it's a piece of technology that you can freeze your eggs at a younger age. So they're younger, healthier eggs. I started the process of freezing my eggs when I was 36, and it just didn't feel right because I hadn't taken birth control in many years. I'm very sensitive to hormones. Part of the process, obviously, is pumping your body with hormones so that you release a plethora of eggs. I just didn't feel right about it at the time. So I stopped and I didn't go through with it. So I ended up getting pregnant naturally. I didn't ever have a fear that I wouldn't get pregnant, but had I not been so vigilant, I would have, it's really easy to let other people's projected fears to creep in and give you doubt. So I would just encourage you to listen to your heart. If you have any of your own fears, like, for sure, freeze your eggs, because then look, you've got 32, 33, 34-year-old eggs. You can have a baby through IVF, perhaps at 45, 46, 47, 48 with those healthy eggs, which is wonderful that technology can do that. But yeah, I would just follow your heart. And, women are having babies later and later naturally, not even with the help of IVF. Like I said, I got pregnant naturally. My husband's older. I'm older. People, were telling me, oh, because of your husband's age and your age, like Down syndrome is a higher likelihood. And I'm like, excuse me, like, okay, there's always a percentage, I could get the likelihood of me walking across the street and getting hit by a bus is higher than all of those things. So let's just stop projecting your stuff onto me, so you just have to be vigilant. You have to allow people to have, have their thoughts, and just, if you're around people with very strong opinions and you don't want them to share them, just like, you don't really have to share what you're going through. You just have to be a little bit more selfish with your path and your truth, and follow your heart. Cause I'm a big believer that women, especially, the healthier you are physically and mentally, I think, you're going to be able to have children and bear children later and later.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. And I think it goes back to the original theme of this conversation, which is you can architect your mindset around anything. So, no matter what somebody's going to project onto you, or no matter what stories somebody's telling you, you have the choice and the power of choice and your thoughts and your beliefs and how you feel and how you want to choose to feel in any given situation. So thank you for that answer. It's been something that I've always wanted to ask somebody, but never really had the courage to, because we haven't been in a deep conversation before like this. So I just appreciate your honesty there, because it's been the same for me. I've had people say, you should freeze your eggs. You should, your clock is ticking. And same scenario. My fiance has children already. So it's something where, when are you guys having kids? What are you guys going to do? And we're kind of just wait. We want to wait. We want to wait and have our own experience together. And, he's got kids, and, I'm slowly becoming this step parent, and that's a journey in itself. And so I'm kind of working on that right now. And we just want to wait. We want to have our own really special experience. So thank you for that answer.
Yeah. Awesome. Good luck. It's exciting.
Yes, I started getting pressure when I was like 28 my background, I'm Russian. I'm a Russian Jew. And the Russian, they're like, oh, you're getting old. Right. I would even have family friends start telling me, asking me at like 24. I'm 30 now. And I'm just like, God, I'm so young. So, and I want to also say that my friend's friend is 34 and her husband's 67 and they're having a baby. So, I mean, the projections, Kelly, that you were getting about like, oh, the Down syndrome stuff, it's like it's such bullshit.
It is.
Such bullshit. I'm like, be quiet. Don't want to hear it.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with like epidurals and natural. It's like, I think that the moral of the story is like, just no judgment. Don't judge yourself and don't judge others, and allow people to project and have their own judgment, but don't let it take your power. Don't let it take your energy. It's just like, just stay in non-judgment and try to practice. Of course, I'm human. I fall back into criticism and judgment as well, but I don't want to be judged. Let's not judge others. If someone chooses to have a baby with an epidural, we've got beautiful technology that allows us to do that. Let them, there's just, we don't need to shame anyone or judge them for when you have a child, when you don't have a child, if you have a child, if you don't have a child, how you do it, just like let everyone live, man,
Yeah, definitely. I have another controversial question, but it's been on the forefront of my mind, and I'm sure it has been on your mind. Vaccines. Yeah,
this is a tough one. This is a big one.
It's a big one. It's a big one, especially with the new, I speak my truth, and we're all about being bold and vulnerable here, and like I'm being bold and vulnerable and honest, and again, like I said, like if you don't want to get into this, that's totally fine, because I know that there's so much criticism out there about this, but I have really gone down the rabbit hole of research with it, and it's a very complicated and a very what's the word I'm looking for?
Sensitive.
sensitive and very, it's run by big pharma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
It's super sensitive, and we're literally getting to a place in hi boo boo. We're getting to a place in California where, and I don't
People
know
have to
about
leave.
the other states. Yeah, we don't have a choice. They're taking, with laws, they are taking away the choice of the mother. And being extremely educated in a lot of things, I'm not anti-vaccine. I think that because of vaccines, diseases have been eradicated. However, I think it's also irresponsibility of pharmaceutical companies and the shit that they put in vaccines, preservatives and heavy metals, and mercury and aluminum, and stuff that are little fragile, pure little beings, systems just cannot process. And that's, we want to talk about laws. Like, there needs to be stricter laws about what's going into these vaccines. So,
and the schedule too, the way that they schedule it,
the
amount.
I'm blessed to have doctors. If, at the very least, you guys have to find pediatricians that are willing to space them out. I mean, there's no need to give a small child 6 shots in the first month. I mean, that's asinine, and it's actually criminal, I think. But so my daughter's 4 months old, and we've gotten 1 vaccine, and it was devastating, and I cried, and she cried, and it was just devastating to give her a shot, period, to inflict pain on my child, And
when you think about like epigenetics too, right? Because we talked about that with Bruce Lipton, like all the people that have autoimmune stuff that could have an adverse reaction to it, right? Like, mandating that is sort of
right. Everybody's different, right? The sensitivity and there's so many toxins just in our environment, like the blood of, they're testing blood, and there's so many plastics in the blood of infants now, just because it's just proliferate, prevalent in our environment now. So their little bodies can't handle a toxic burden. So we really need to, I'm hoping that, and I think that there are a couple of vaccines, and I'm not going to share what my opinions are here about which are necessary and which are not, but like hepatitis C,
talk about it off.
Hepatitis C is not, that's
necessary,
transmitted through sex and needles. Like, my baby is not having sex or being poked with a dirty needle,
That's exactly what I said too.
Yeah. So, and it's just, I wish we had a little more freedom to be logical and use common sense and more compassion for these precious little beings, and administer these awesome preventative measures in more intelligent and compassionate ways. And hopefully it'll move in that direction soon.
Or bioengineer them in a way that's specific to each individual, right? Because it's not a one size fits all approach, right?
Correct.
So if you can create it in a way where it works with the individual's body, I have nothing against Western medicine. I'm going to see my doctor. I believe in Western medicine. Like I said, it's great for trauma. Great for you need surgery. Like you're in an accident, your arm's hanging off. Like I need to be in the ER. I don't need you bandaging me up. You need to be performing the surgery, reconnecting my nerves. There's so many factors that go into that. It's just that I believe that there's a mind, body, soul aspect as well. And like everybody is like different. Like everyone's DNA is different. Everyone's chemical composition is different. We're all just unique individuals. So but before I know we've been going, and I feel like I could just keep talking. Before we kind of wrap up, this is a question that we love to ask all of our guests is, what's the most bold and vulnerable thing that you've ever done in your life? Just what you've done or shifted, and whatever it may be. Like, what would that be for you?
I would say it's definitely making the documentary and writing this book, because I feel like as this book is about to be published, the film was one thing, and I'm, in hindsight, it's been very successful and well received. And one of the biggest compliments that I feel is when people say, I've watched your film, 3 to 10 times, like you did, you watched it a couple times and you get something new every time. I mean, that to me is such wonderful feedback, that it's rich with information, and it was, it's offering people something, and that to me is so gratifying. And because it was a bold move, and it's super vulnerable. I'm not an expert, except for in my own knowing. It's a knowing in my heart that this is truth, that we have so much potential. And quantum physics, if we focus on possibility, we can manifest that possibility out of the field of infinite possibilities, or infinite potential. So definitely making the film. I'm feeling very vulnerable that the book is coming out, because it's there, it's written, it's there in writing for people to criticize and pick apart. And of course, that's my mind in fear. That's my mind focusing on the worst case scenario. That's my mind, operating from the subconscious belief that I am not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not Einstein, so why in the world did I write this book? I'm not the expert, So all of these thoughts, I'm feeling very vulnerable that this book is coming out. But at the same time, it's just like the documentary. It's it's my knowing, it's my truth. And, I'm sharing with the help of the wisdom of the experts that I've included in the book and the film. I'm sharing what I think is helpful and inspiring and my truth. So that's all you can do. And the film helped a lot of people. I have to trust that the book will help people as well. And yeah, so this project was definitely my most bold and vulnerable.
I typically ask people to, share what their most gifted books are or most suggested books, but you actually, throughout this entire conversation, listed, I think, 4 different books. So I'll skip that and just maybe finish on what does your morning routine look like, and how do you start your day?
Yeah, I start with I like to drink a glass of warm water with lemon. Just kind of start the detoxification of the organs. Then I go, wake up Riley and, or be there when she wakes up and breastfeed, which is hard to do if you don't have a child or you have an older child. And then I make a coffee, which is usually, I try to get like a non-mold coffee, organic. And then I blend it with a tablespoon of coconut oil. I like to get my good fats, and it makes the coffee creamy. And I think it helps with the caffeine. I think it makes the caffeine more of a slow burn rather than a spike and crash situation for me. And that's my 1 cup of coffee a day, but I thoroughly enjoy it. And depending on my day, it depends on if I have time to meditate and journal, I'll do that before coffee, or I'll journal during coffee and meditate before. Otherwise, I will drink coffee, get an hour of work done, and then meditate. I'll answer emails and everything, wait for the coffee to even off a little bit, and then I'll meditate. But I journal basically just to kind of set the tone for the day. I do a lot of gratitude journaling. So I have 3 journals in rotation right now. One is just to keep track of kind of what's going on in life, so I can go back and refer in later years. Sometimes it's 1 sentence, sometimes it's 2 pages. I have a journal for Riley. And so I kind of talk to her about, it's a journal for her to read later about what's going on with her. And again, it could be 2 sentences. It could be a couple pages. Today I took you to the doctor for your first shot. It was devastating. You cried and I cried, and but you're such a trooper, and you've had no reaction to the shot, blah, blah, blah. But it's just kind of a nice gift that she can always kind of go back and I don't know how long I'll do it, but I enjoy doing it for now. And then I have my gratitude journal, which is I give thanks for things that are happening in my life. I give thanks from my health, my daughter's health, my husband's health, my loved one's health, my brother, etc. I give thanks for all the blessings that are occurring in my life right now. And then I give thanks for things that I desire, as if I already had them. It's kind of a fun visualization exercise, quantum physics, quantum effect, where you're causing an effect. So for instance, I'm so happy and grateful that, the Heal book is out and on the New York Times bestseller list, or I'm so happy and grateful that, whatever it may be that you want, as if you already had it. And I think that's a good practice of, it's like kind of an active vision board. You're giving thanks for things, and it's a fun exercise that I find helpful. And again, I think gratitude and love are the two most powerful emotions and most powerful kind of manifestors and attractors. And so getting into gratitude is a great way to set the tone for the day. And it kind of gets you out of any funk that you're in, if there's a funk hanging around, So that's kind of my morning routine. If I have time to work out, great. I much prefer to work out in the morning. But right now working out has kind of fallen in the priority list because, Riley, work, and self-care first. I think once the book's out, then I can get back into like morning workout routine, because it really helps my mental health. When I get a good little sweat in, it also is very helpful.
That's amazing. And where can people find you? Where can people follow you besides the documentary, right? Which I'm sure all of our listeners are going to run to their computers to find. Where can people follow your journey, and where are you most active?
Sure. I'm probably most active on Instagram, which I'm at Kelly Gores, Gores. We also have the website healdocumentary.com, which you can find out kind of about events or get the book or the movie there. And the Heal Instagram is very inspiring for anyone on a healing journey. That's at Heal Documentary on Instagram. And then on Facebook, I'm at Kelly N. Gores. And at Heal Documentary as well. And Twitter is the same as Facebook. But I'm not very active on Twitter. Heal is, but Kelly is not at this point. Perhaps in the future.
I was also going to ask your book, what day is it launching? And, is it on Amazon? Is it available? I believe I saw that it's available for pre-orders. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's the release date is October 22nd, 2019. And it is available for pre-order now anywhere books are sold. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. There's a UK version that's available in the UK and Australia. And it's being translated into, I think, 17 different languages, or 17 in English right now. So it'll be available worldwide in many different languages very soon, which is exciting.
That's so amazing. Major, major, major congrats on that. That's such a huge achievement. You are definitely like total boss mama. And you definitely brought this beautiful manifestation into fruition. And I'm so grateful for you for bringing this into the world and sharing this truth and this inner knowing and this calling that you had. So thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you for having me on. You guys are awesome to talk to.
Thank you for listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. For more information on today's speaker, please visit us at boldandvulnerablepodcast.com.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the love by being bold and vulnerable. Thank you. We love you.